Okay, welcome back to the channel. We've done more on the Subaru. We've been doing the arches and everything. When you left last time, you'd see we'd cut off the seals and we were getting them ready to weld on. So the way I've slid in a full rear arch panel means the arches, the inner arches, have to go in before the sill. This wouldn't be an issue if you'd remove the coulter, but obviously once the sill section is all round here, I wouldn't be able to get the arch up in there. So what we've done first is we've put the arches in. I don't know if I showed before, we've primered up both of these. We've now got all the holes in the seals prepped, ready for the spot welds, ground back, and we've got the insides all in just a zinc primer. I'll be honest with you, whether it's my welder playing up or whether it's the U-Pole zinc primer, but I find it doesn't always arc up when you start the weld through the zinc primer. I've never had the issue without the zinc primer on it, but the U-Pole zinc primer I'm just not a massive fan of, but certain things you want to get primer on there first. But here, for example, if you're welding straight through onto this and you've got the other piece primered as well, not a massive fan. So we ground off all the bits here to fit the seal over. We've just primered they're the inner pieces that we talked about, that we had to remove from the OEM replacement seal panel, that are going to go back in here and then get spot welded again in, I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 locations. And I'm going to put them back in purely to give more strength in this corner structure. But getting on to the arches. So we'd given the arches a coat of the primer on the outside, slid them back up into place, and I don't have a spot welder and I didn't have one I could borrow, and to be fair, never used one, so I plug welded stuff. It's not as neat, and then this is where kind of all the nice prep work and everything that goes, makes everything look really good, gets kind of ruined by my MIG welding. I don't do much MIG welding, I'll be honest with you, and panel work especially is really tricky not to blow holes and stuff like that, especially when you're up under arches and it's difficult access. So excuse some of the welding, but it's my car, it's not a customer's car. I don't do this for customers and stuff like that, so it is what it is. Anyway, let's grab the torch and I'll show you what we've done. So first off, I've done, as mentioned before, I put pins in here. Now these pins locate the panel, because I haven't taken the full underside off, I just cut out the arch, make sure the panel locates exactly where it should do. So I put pins in there, and I also put a pin in there and a pin in there and a bolt in there. So it cannot be in the wrong place, it just can't be. I don't know what I've done with the little pins from the other side. I've moved them and put them somewhere. There we go. So they're the smaller pins that I've done on the inside. There was 2 in those holes, and on this side there's only 1 in the bottom. And again, you've got the one down here in that to make sure that's in the right place. So I can leave them out now, to be fair. So we know the arch is in the perfect place, and we have also had, take that one out before I forget, don't want it rattling around in the seal if it ever falls out. So we know the inner arches are in the perfect spot. We've had the outer seal on, and we know everything lines up nice, so we're good to go there. So the arch was pushed up into place. Now the only thing, some people may criticise me for this, but it is what it is. Inside, if you remove this quarter panel, you've got a reinforcing structure that comes down and is spot welded to the top of the arch. Now the only real simple way to get to this and how it's designed is if you cut the quarter panel off, then you can see that, and it's got 6 or 7 spot welds. Now, I ummed and ahed about attempting to line up so it's under here, it gets spot welded. You can see a recess there. It gets spot welded to this. Now, yes, it's structural in a sense, but if you smash the car, you smash the car, you know. It's not, it may be detrimental to the amount of damage, I don't know, but if you crash the car, you crash the car, you've got bigger things to worry about. So I could have tried to line up and mark the holes and then cut big holes in here and weld through, but it's a thick panel on the reinforcing. These are obviously not very thick, and blowing holes and getting the holes in the right space, it just could have turned into an absolute nightmare. So I decided against that. Now, what I did decide to do was use like a tiger seal, panel bond type stuff. And I've had no issues with this in the past. And on my Fiesta, if any of you guys know, I've got the Fiesta WRC Cosworth, and the quarter panels on that are Kevlar fiberglass mix, and we had to bond them, and they get bonded onto the car because they're Kevlar and fiberglass, so you can't weld them on, obviously. And on that, 10 years ago or something like that, we used tiger seal to put the panel on all around the side. We riveted it. We bonded it up here with the tiger seal. Never had no issues. It's never, obviously it's not going to come loose and this, that and the other. And rather than leave the two panels, the reinforcing and the inner arch separated, I wasn't bothered about the seal. What I was bothered about was vibration. If it was sitting on top of the arch, didn't want it vibrating. So what I'd done was I put a load of tiger seal up onto that panel where it would be welded, like thick. And then when I pushed the arch up into place, it went through the holes where the spot welds were drilled out, and it would create a thick layer that would get squished together as the arch went into place. And that's going to stop any vibration of the two, and it's also going to create quite a strong bond. Not as good as welding, totally agree, not as good as welding. But I'm not cutting the quarter off to get to it. And even when we repair the arch and cut up here for the new arch section, you're not going to get to where that section needs to be welded. So we've bonded it on. Now I may be able to, well I should be able to just show you on this side. You're going to see it, try and get a bit of light in there for you as well. That silver there, because I've sprayed a bit of zinc primer paint in it, you can see it's all squished out under the panel, and it's squeezed up like a sausage through the spot weld holes. And the same on the other side, you'll see better on this side. Same again, you can see it's squished up through the holes and it's all squeezed out around the panel. So that's perfect, because that is kind of the best of a situation, best of the bad situation I can do, and think of sealing that up easily without cutting the quarter off, which we're obviously not doing. So anyway, the arch is in place. Then I went ahead and I done tiny little stitch welds, kind of getting my eye in down here. A couple of them went bad. I did pop through a few times and create some holes, but I done stitch welds all the way up here, and then the same down here. Nothing crazy neat. Spot weld on here and ground them down. And again, I do not think my MIG welding and all that sort of stuff is very good. I hardly ever do it. And then up in here, it's going to be difficult to see. Let me get that torch again. There was a couple of pinholes in the panel. Now, without the quarter off, this is so difficult to get up into. But if I can get a mirror, you can see there that I've spot welded it all the way along, and then up in this corner where my finger's pointing was a couple of pinholes, and I had to sort of do a bit more of a weld and grind it down. Now, the advantage I've got in the sense of from the factory way, it's not an advantage, but what I've done to try and make it a bit about, obviously all that is going to be seam sealed, so all the gaps you see, they're just factory gaps in the corners. That's how the panels are. There's going to be thick seam sealer all around there, make sure that's completely sealed up so no water can get in. On the factory setup, before I cut the arches out, the wheel arch was on the inside of the car panel, so any water that did go through from the factory seam sealer being really thin would get up and down between the panels, and of course that's when you start getting rot and the turrets rot out, etc., among other reasons. Well, now what I've done is I've put this wheel arch on the outside of the panel, so if water splashes up to where I've done the spot welds, it's going to hit that, run down and run back down into the arch. It's not going to get between them because the panel, the overlap, rather than being on that side and water getting between here and here, it's now on this side. So the water will splash up and just run down. Will it make a massive difference? I don't know, but that's the way I fitted it in my head. The overlap should be on that side so that the water runs off, not tries to run between the panels. So we've done that. Any welds that were a bit big and ugly, we ground them down, and we've just sprayed on some of the zinc primer for the minute, the weld through primer, just because that's what I've got. And then all this will get 2K epoxy primered at a later date. But that is the arch, completely in there, completely where it needs to be. We've done a couple of small spots here to keep this tab in place. And then when we weld through, you had like a burn through there and a few marks and bits and pieces where it's welded there. So again, I just rubbed it down with a wire brush and then just licked over it with a bit of the zinc primer. If you ever do this, be careful, because I almost forgot this, and I almost, if I hadn't thought last knockings, if I'd have melted through that, it's a wiring loom out job. So that's one side. The other side here is the same, and again we've put paint here because where the arch joins you can see little tiny bits of weld where it obviously burnt the paint off on the other side naturally. Same up there, and we've done exactly the same. So little bits of stitch weld, only tiny, because bear in mind this was spot welded on, so it was never a full weld. I did and ah about a full weld, but there's just no need, just making hard work for myself. Again, up there and around here, all spot welded on. Down there, I forgot to grind that one down, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going for concours. And then up there, again, you can see this side didn't have pinholes, so I just managed to get up there and put some spot welds on it. And things like these gap here, that's completely as standard. You know, that's how it was from the factory. I haven't missed anything out. That's just how it is. And again, put a bit of paint down there and we are good to go. So taking the quarters off, definitely a better option, but massive job. Another £1,200 for quarter panels, and God knows how much work. So if you want to take the quarters off, you've actually got to take this whole centre section off as well, because the quarter just in this section here is underneath this top parcel shelf panel, whatever you want to call it. So you start getting into the quarters coming off. It's a big job. Not so it'd be lovely to do it, but I've got to draw the line somewhere, you know. And like I say, this is not going concours competition car or anything stupid like that, and it's not even an STI, it's a WRX. I've already thrown far too much money at it, so we just want to get it back together. So the next stage, now the arches are done, I've primed, I weld the inner bits back in there, like we just said, and then I will get the the sill back on along here. We'll get it tacked in place around the pillars. I'm actually worried about this one because I'm worried about burn through on there. Now somebody did mention to me, one of the guys I speak to via YouTube and stuff like that, he messaged me and said, why don't you put a backing plate in there so that when you join the two panels you've got something behind it. It's not going to make no difference to the panel, and if you've got, I think around here there's about a millimetre gap, maybe a bit more in places, it's going to be a lot easier to weld with a little bit of backing metal behind it than it is if you've got nothing at all. So I may look at doing that. Not bothered here because you've got metal behind it. So even if you blow a hole out a bit, you can just fill it up because you've got some real thick metal behind there. So that's okay. But this bit, I'm a little bit worried because, like I say, my welding on the panels is not the best. And then the wheel arch section, I'm actually going to leave that small wheel arch section. I'm going to cut it and prep the panel, but I'm going to leave that welding to the body guy, I think, because I'm just paranoid that I'm going to make a mess of the bits you're going to see. In here, you're not going to see it, nobody cares. But this bit up here, I'm paranoid I'm going to make a mess of it, so I'm going to leave that bit to them. So yeah, I'll bring you back in a minute when we get these panels in place. One last thing, when I put the panel in and I sat it here, I'm not sure if I showed you in the last video, but the new sill has got the OEM lip on it, which is where your spot welds are going to be. So this lip here that little lip just there, actually comes down around 6mm below this, which I thought, oh, I should have made this longer. Maybe when I cut it off, I couldn't remember. Maybe the inner one stopped here because I hadn't touched that. Maybe this drop down actually extended past this one. And I cut it off, but maybe there was a mil or two, but there wasn't 6mm, I don't think. So what I've actually worked out is when all up here is spot welded in place, because that's got the reinforcing in, it's kind of sprung open. Just naturally it wants to be open. If I put a bit of wood across there and a bottle jack or toe jack, which I've got over there, and you just jack it up, none of this part moves, none of the door shut moves, nothing pushes out, but the bottom bit squashes up nicely against there. So when we spot weld, we'll get the top in place, get loads of spot welds so that can't move, and then we'll get the bottle jack with a long piece of wood, and we just ever so gently, it doesn't take much, you're not like you're trying to lift the car, bending it in place, just a couple of pumps on the jack, and it closes that gap, bang, we can put some spot welds in it. So that's going to be where we're at next, and I'll bring you back when we get some of that done. Okay, so I've just put the reinforcing sections back in, made sure they're cut nice and short so they don't interfere when the sill goes over the top. We've done the spot welds in there, we've ground them down. Where we had deeper gouges, I've just filled it in with weld and ground it off again. I didn't do the really light ones, done the spot welds underneath. Same there, I had a couple of deep gouges through there, so I've welded them up, ground them off, and then put a little bit more of the zinc primer all down here, give it quite a thick heavy coat, and all the way in there, and sprayed a bit more inside, just more protection for the inside. And then we've also done exactly the same on the other side, reinforcing back in, spot welds, a bit more primer, cleaned up some grind marks, heavy zinc primer on there, a bit more inside, and then we're ready to go. So I'm going to let that dry 20 minutes, half hour, while I carry on with a bit of work, and then we'll get these back in position for what should be the final time. Want to be putting this stuff back together, not taking it off. So yeah, there we are, ready. So let's get the sill bolted in place. Right, so the sill's prepped and ready on the side of the car. The dog's just guarding it at the minute. Any Ruby? So we're all clamped in position. So you can see on here, we've got a bit of a gap here and there, but it lines up super nice all the way around there. We've made sure that the lower wing bolt and this wing bolt, which are obviously for the front wings, are in line. We haven't touched the door hinge bolts here. We've got all our spot welds ready, and they'll have to be ground off. Same up here. Then there's a couple that go from the back because it's thicker there where the reinforcing is. Then again, we're lined up here, got a bit of a bigger gap, but nicely lined up around here. Gaps a little bit up and down, but we've got backing behind this bit, not so much here. And I'm, like I said before, a bit worried about blowing through, but I'm going to practice on some of the scrap pieces we cut off there, doing a butt weld, see what settings are like. Clamped up in place here. On the back here, this is kind of sprung out a little bit, you can see there. So what I'm going to do, as I go along, I'm going to put a bit of metal in there and just use that to pull it forward. I was going to put a piece behind there, but I've decided not to bother. So I'm going to go, there's not a big gap, and I think if I get the settings right, I'm going to be good. So we're all in place there. Now what I wanted to show you is what I said prior, what I said previously, shall I say, regarding, let's just put this other clamp on there, regarding the sill. So you can see there, we've got the holes ready to plug weld for the sill, and you can see there how far out we are from this bottom lip here. It should curl round here. From there, you're probably around 10mm now, that's all clamped up, and that's pretty much the entire way along the sill. And what I wanted to show you, if you're doing this job yourself and you think, oh my God, something's really wrong, which is what I thought, regards to the drop down section. Now I've just got a jack here with a couple of bits of wood on it, and we don't even have to use that, to be fair. So you can see through that hole, you can see where that is. And what I want to show you is that none of this moves, is what I want to show you. So I'll just jack that up, and obviously I'm just doing it with my hand. So you can see none of this stuff moved. If we now look under there, a couple more on there. We've almost, I know the wood's in the way there, but we've almost closed that gap completely up, and that's how it should be. And you can see like them cutouts are in line with here. And obviously you can see how low down this bit still is, because that's not where we're jacking up. I think if I can get higher up there, we're jacking up there. As you can see, now we're only under by a couple of millimetres. And I can probably do that a little bit more to get where we want to get. So don't worry if you're going to weld all this up and you think it's miles out, because you can just jack that up, and when I come to do the spot welds, rather than jacking this one section at a time, I'm going to put 2 bottle jacks under there, and then one long piece of wood if I've got it, which I'm pretty sure I have, and then like I say, that'll push that up nicely. Then we have to be where we need to be, give or take a couple of millimetres, because I never touched the original inner sill section. So then we'll be able to go and plug all this all the way along, plug all them welds, and then do these bits around here, and then we'll have one sill fully fitted to the car. So like I said before, this is the bit that kind of makes me a little nervous on some of it, because I'll be able to do the plug welds, I'll do them as good as I can, and you can grind them, so it doesn't really matter. And the trim covers all of them, and the side skirt covers the ones at the bottom, so it doesn't matter. But I am a little bit concerned about how my welding is going to be around here, because obviously when you open the door, you're going to see it. Yes, you're going to have filler, so it's not going to be the end of the weld, but you want the welds good to be able to grind them nice and flush, so you want full penetration on the weld. I don't want to blow holes in it. Fingers crossed, that's not what happens. So I'm not going to film whilst I'm welding and all that, because I'll do it a bit at a time whilst I'm machining, but I'll get everything sort of tacked up in place so I can remove the clamps, and then we'll go from there. So I'll bring you back and we'll see what a mess I've made of it. Fingers crossed, not too bad. Okay, so we've got the driver's side sill on. Done the spot welds, done the welding, done the thin sheet sections, and it actually didn't go too bad. Now, like I said, I'm not the greatest at this sort of MIG welding, I just don't do it. But I'll show you the back section first. And it actually came out, we're not ground it down because I wanted to show you the state of the welds before we grind. And we've done it one tack at a time. Obviously, didn't go right to the very edge there because I didn't want to burn off the corner, because we don't know, we'll probably cut this further back here, but I've welded it to there. So we're nice and good. I've done it in small tacks and then little blow down with the airline in between. Now we've got spot welds. To be fair, that was almost harder than this, because it's like if you don't go enough it weren't sticking, and if you go too hot it burns out. So I've done quite a high wire feed, and obviously it leaves me a lot of grinding down. Now if I'd have had a spot welder and could have borrowed a spot welder, I'm not going to buy one for the sake of one small job, but obviously it's going to be much neater to spot weld, and it's going to be probably, with all these and the bottom, it's probably going to be an hour or two's grinding that you wouldn't have to do. So if you can get a spot welder, then obviously a spot welder is going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to save you a lot of grinding and a lot of mess. So yeah, we've done the centre section. Went a bit sort of cold in places. Well, it was okay first off. I did blow a few holes here, and there's a little bit I've missed there, because what I'm going to have to do is grind all these down, Then anywhere that shows any pinholes, I'll have to spot afterwards. So they do say you might have to do it 2 or 3 times to cover the holes, but I'm quite happy with that. Like I say, I went a bit cold starting off here, and then it kind of got a bit better along the edge there, but it's not bad, it's not bad. Same along here, we were a little bit more dialed in by this point, and we tacked it all the way along and all the way round there. Not the neatest in there, but I've got remnants of like the sealer that goes down. I tried to clean it off, but it's in the edge. And then we spot welded to here. Now I'm not going to spot weld across here just yet. I'm going to let this leave this like this for the moment. Then I'm waiting for sanding belts for the air file, like the finger file that I use for a lot of this stuff, which is this. All I've got left is these really, really coarse ones from saying I was doing. And to be fair, the belt quality is terrible and it just comes off in lumps. So I've completely run out anyway, so I've ordered a couple of 100 belts that I need in general, and then I can take down all these welds and go around here and clean them up. So that's going to be obviously a bit boring, but I'll show you again when we have cleaned them all up. And I'll do all the inside here first and across the pillar sections, and then I will do the underside. What I want to do is I want to put the doors back on, the front and rear doors back on, before I push the sill up into place, just to make sure the shuts and everything, like the shuts between the doors, are going to look okay. I marked around the hinges before I took them off. Obviously this one not so much because we've got a new panel, but I've marked around the hinge there, and we'll get it roughly in place. I just want to double check everything looks okay, and then maybe I'll leave the door on, or maybe I'll take the door off, and then I should be all right under here because the weld spatter's not going to come up and round. But yeah, so we've got one side on. Wasn't as bad as I thought doing the sheet metal. Setting wise, I've only got a cheap Artec welder, and for the thin sections at the back and the B pillar and the A pillar, we had it on voltage number 1, and wire feed I had it on 2. And for the spot welds, I've stayed at voltage 1, but I've done the wire feed at 3, because sometimes even when it clamped there was a slight gap, so you kind of needed to burn and fill it with weld and let it puddle out a little bit more before you went around on the plug weld. So yeah, quite happy with that. We've got another side to do. I won't show you the ins and outs of the other side because it's literally rinse and repeat, but yeah, we'll go from there. Let's get the other side done, get it ground down, and I'll bring you back and we'll show you what it looks like all finished and done. Okay, so we've done the welding on the sills, and I'm going to go around and just show you where we're at. Obviously the welding was done, sorry, we finished the grinding. So we've done all the spot welds and we've ground them down. Now again, like I said before, this would have been much easier if I'd had an actual spot welder, because it would have been quicker, tidier, better looking. But as said, this all gets hidden by the seals and the trim panels anyway. This bit here, we've welded it. You can see it stayed pretty good. Obviously skimmer filler. We've got a couple of dents here, and I think that, I assume, because it's on both sides, that's from the seat belt getting caught and people shutting the door. So yeah, that side of it there is done. We've welded again around here. I haven't ground it absolutely flush, because what I don't want to do, compressor, what I don't want to do is actually sort of burn through. So if that gets skimmed there, if they want to take a little bit more off, I'll leave that down to them. But kind of, this one you not see as much. This one here, I've gone a little bit further, but I reckon with a skim, I actually forgot to take that out and got paint all over it. So I might need to clean that up, but the paint will just rub off. Again, ground down all the spot welds and then welded around the A pillar post, all there. And I've done the spot welds here. I haven't done the spot welds under there yet. There's 32 on this side and there's 32 on the other side. I averaged it out about the same as the OEM. Again, if I had a spot welder, my life would be so much easier, because it's going to take me probably an hour, a couple of hours to weld them, and probably a couple of hours to grind them down. Whereas you could have half that time if you were just spot welding them. But we're on. We're rock solid, and I think we're looking pretty good. So let's show you the other side. obviously it's no different. Same again there, looking pretty good. Not taking the welds right down, spot welds, centre section, and then same again on the front. And then there's all the spot weld holes that we've got to do on the other side. Now, once the spot welds on the lower sill are done, that's it for the sills. And that's almost it for the entire welding on the car. I've then got two more, no, it's not it for the entire welding on the car. Depends whether I do it. I've got these two bits to weld up. They look like they're OEM, but they weren't. They were rusted holes, and I squared them off with the air file. So they've got to be done. They're no dramas, obviously. That's straightforward. Then I've got the arches. I got on okay with these. I wasn't too bad with that. And obviously when they've got filler on it, you're never going to notice that. It's going to look absolutely mint. I'm quite impressed. So now I'm thinking, should I do the arch repairs? Because excuse me, the body shop are painting the entire car now. The car is going to get painted everywhere. Bonnet, inside and outside, bumpers, doors, door shuts, roof, windscreens, boot, spoiler, everything's being painted as a full respray now. And that included fitting the rear arch panels. We're probably going to cut out along here and along here. We're not going to cut out much. I'm going to stay below the filler and keep it quite low down. Just, you can see here, this actually isn't too bad, but the lip I cut off to get this arch in. The lip section and this corner all down the bottom was all rusty. So I didn't want to just put little patches in here and there, and all down this section was obviously rusty when I took this off. So what I want to do is I want to replace kind of like a whole section. Now I think what we'll do is we'll weld, I don't want to weld on that flat because it's very, the piece doesn't come up there very nice. So I might end up welding like on this section of the flat. I don't want it to look, I don't want it to affect the door shut. Yeah, so I'm not sure where to weld it. Maybe it'll be straight in the middle will be best and then across. Rather than if I do in this corner, it's going to be, you've got to get that radius back again. So I don't know where I'm going to weld it yet. Maybe I could weld it up there in the radius, I don't know. So I may well do that, possibly, may leave it to the body shop. But that's the seals all welded on. I'll do the spot welds underneath, I'll weld the little pieces on the back, and then I'll bring you back again. So yeah, I'm pretty chuffed with that, to be fair. It come out okay, I've done better than I thought I would, so happy days. Okay, so we're back, and I'm going to end the video with these seals done. If I do anything to the arches, it'll be separate, or as mentioned, the body shop will do it. So I put the doors back on the car because I don't want them just laying around the workshop, and we just wanted to double check things are all good. And I also welded up these two holes here. Going to need a little skim of filler, and your boot seal goes on there. I'm not really, you know, that fussed. It's super thin there, this material, so I burnt through a couple of places here, so skim of filler, a little bit primer over the top, that's going to be done. Obviously you can see the seals in there. We've gone round and we just got to put, we have put, sorry, a little bit of the zinc primer along there, again just to keep it neat for the moment, and then obviously everything else will be done when the body shop is got the car. So there's the spot welds for the seal that raised it up. As I mentioned, we raised it up here with the jack, so the lower lip is roughly where it should be, you know, give or take. Looks pretty good. Everything is aligned as good as I'm going to be able to do it anyway. And then same on the other side. Doors back on. Bit of zinc primer. And then same under here. Spot welds along the seals. Couple under there. And then we've got the same with the lower lip up in the air where it should be. So I'd say for the seals, that is a job well done. I was going to look into chopping a bit of the arch and stuff like that, but I'm not now. The video's getting too long as it is. It's like 35, 40 minutes. And I know for a lot of people it's a bit boring, so my videos do tend to go on and on a bit. Apologies about that, but yeah, that is fitting new sill panels to the Subaru. So came out really well. I'm happy with how it went, and fitting complete new sills was a much better option in my opinion, and worked better. Just wish I'd done it from the off than fitting replacement ones. I tried a skirt on here, put the skirt on, all the clips, the back piece, everything obviously is perfect. So yeah, fitting new seals to the Subaru, job done. Cheers for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like the channel, like the content. I don't know what's going to be next on the videos. We've got to prime the underside of the car, seam seal the underside of the car, then potentially the plan is to get it running again here so it will drive onto a trailer for the body shop and drive off for the body shop, so when they're putting it into the paint booth, etc, then the car can be driven. So we're going to see what happens there. It all depends on these arches, because if the arch still needs to be welded on, the arch sections, I don't know how I'm going to go about priming the underside if they've got a weld to it, because I don't want to use Raptor in the wheel arch if they're potentially going to spot weld the inner section of the arch to this bit here. So imagine if they spot weld these together, or trim them back and bond them, because you don't want to leave them open because stuff's going to get between them and that is going to rot out faster than you can imagine. So not sure, we'll see what happens on this. If I do the arch, then it's not going to be as much of an issue, but we'll see. Anyway, that's it for the video. Cheers for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you again on the next one.